I think this is going to be my last video on the chassis, and then we're going to switch over and start working on the body. So today my plan is to get the steering back in, get the steering column back in, probably get the brake lines all mocked up, get the exhaust system hung on, and then I will, whoops, I think I already did. I'll show you what my plan is for the back of the transfer case. So, might as well get to work. Okay, so this is what I'm using for the alignment, the old string method. So it's touching both my back tires and it's not touching there. So I need to bring that in a little bit. And over here, it's touching both sides. Now there's a little bit of discrepancy back there. That tire is a little low, and that might be why, but it is touching both. So I'm gonna consider this wheel straight with back wheels, which visually it looks that way. And then this one visually looks like it's kicked out. So I'm gonna go ahead and just try on the one that I already broke free and put the new the new tie rod, the center one in, see if we can get all the adjustments in this side. Okay, so I will show you. Looking down the tire line, they look pretty good. And the string is just, see, it's not quite touching, but it's right there. Okay, we're just touching here. So the string alignment method, it is not perfect. I'm sure there's many different ways. If I had access to the alignment rack still, I would go stick it on there. But for what I'm doing with this Jeep right now, this is perfect. So I'm happy with that. So moving on to the next part of the process. Another interesting thing about using, I'm going to say the wrong grease in the steering box. You can see where it just kind of gets pushed off to the side. I already cleaned that up quite a bit, sorry. But most of the grease was just right up here around this. These parts had very little grease on them. And so I'll probably be using that John Deere grease in this, same as I use up in the knuckles. I'll show you that. Okay guys, there's what a good one looks like next to a bad one. So you can certainly see that this one is junk. This is one I had in the shed. This is just another one that I took out of another old Jeep, but you can really see the difference. Okay, so it's nice to put it in a vise. I already got the bottom bearing all packed in with grease, slipped the top bearing in. Unfortunately, it's like 8 feet in the air, so I had to get the ladder so I could actually slide the bearing down, and I'll have to do the same with the cap and the shims. But and sorry I didn't bring you, get you for that first part of that video, but that top bearing is in. It's got some grease in it. I'm gonna pack some more. So this is the grease that I like to use for the knuckles and for the steering boxes. It's cornhead grease. It's a pretty loose grease. It's not super dense or stiff. And if you get online, watch a video of it, as soon as something starts moving in it, it almost turns to liquid. But then as soon as the movement stops, it gets solid again. So that's the grease that I like to use. And that way it never weeps and drips and leaks out. and yet it still gets to everywhere that it needs to be. So anyway, I'm gonna end up packing this thing really full of this stuff to keep the water out. So I'm gonna try to show you, let me get a little better lighting going here too, how that grease works. Maybe this will be the best corn head grease video ever. So you can see it's not moving, it's not running, but as soon as you start working it, it sort of gets loose and it just starts to flow a little bit. And the more you work it, the more it flows. And then as soon as you stop, it kind of goes back to its greasiness. So I like it. It seems like it's good stuff to me. I need to get some more grease in there, as you could hear, but the steering box is going back together well. Okay, on the raw steering box, there's two different ways that you adjust these. The first one, sorry, I didn't show it to you. Let me get on this side. Is you take these shims in and out, and that puts a preload because it compresses a bearing race up against the bearings that push against this side. So basically, in effect, by taking them out, you're squeezing them together and putting a little bit more on the shaft. So that's how you end up getting some of that play out of your shaft, which this one is real good. The other one is this nut and bolt combination. And what that does, let me show you. If you back this off, here, I'll back it off quite a ways. So now what I've done by backing that off is I've got play in there. Now you gotta have some, you can't get it too tight or else it'll bind. So all you do is you just take that and you adjust it in and out until that little bit of play is there and your steering box is working free. And I'm sure there's some actual settings for that. Check it out, look it up, see if you can find like a, you know, how much you're supposed to do it. I just kind of do it by feel, and it's worked for me so far. Okay, I got all my brake line stuff out. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use this hydraulic crimper and put some ends on some line and start getting some lines bent up to put into the chassis. Okay guys, that was a quick show on how the little hand hydraulic crimper works. This one, here it is. It's the PFT 409, which comes with a decent amount of dies for making all your different flares. So just using the 3/16 and let's see if that'll focus in. Does a nice job. Sorry about the focus. Just see if I can move that around a little bit, get it better for you. I don't know if I can get a good picture of it, but it does a pretty nice job on the flares. Didn't get the install, but it is just the 3 bolts for the steering column. You saw the brake lines, so I am waiting for my front brake hose that's coming in yet so that I can get that tied down to there. The back lines, I'm going to do the axle once I get it up in the air, but there's the flex line, and then there is my new line running in the frame. I'm going to dig up, I've got some little clips that hold the line up, so that should end up pretty nice. And so that's it on the brakes. The steering, I've got to order another piece, so I'm not going to finalize the steering. Always leave the steering loose. This is a little over loose, but that way you can wiggle that steering column around a little bit when you go to install it. So I always just kind of leave them loose till I actually stick the tub back on. So things are starting to get back together a little bit more. And guys, you don't need one of these. These work just fine. I've had this one for a long time, made a lot of fittings with it. This works just fine too. This is just a little bit quicker, so don't think you got to go spend, you know, decent money when for around probably 40 to 50 bucks, and that's on the higher end, you can pick up one of these. So again, saving money for something that you really want to use. My rubber brake hoses came in, so that's exciting. I can go ahead and finish putting all the lines now on the hard lines on the front axle. So button up the brakes. Okay, so I do have to put everything back on, backing plates and stuff there, and those little S lines. But as far as the brake lines go, and I gotta get the little straps to hold them down, all the rubber lines are on, all the hard lines are on. Go back here, up and over. These, again, these need the straps, and then I'll kind of get them straightened out just a pinch better. And there's the line up in the frame. Still got to get those little brackets on there. So brake lines and hoses are done. Okay, so I am putting the exhaust pipe on. That's basically the header, if you'll call it. Well, no, the exhaust manifold and then the first pipe. I don't remember what they call it. But look at where that thing lands. If I were to shove it in, it would go, I'd have to split that right in half. I do remember this on my last one. I found it a little bit ridiculous. And I find it a little ridiculous here too. So anyway, we're gonna see what we can do about bending this a little bit. Maybe I'll heat it up and get it to bend. Or maybe I may end up just cutting the welds off there, because I would like to get this as close as I can for that PTO. And so anyway, we'll see if that's gonna work or not. Okay guys, I have the exhaust system now mocked up. Had to do a couple bends. Right there you see one that's bent just around a little bit. But as you can see, I've got tons now of clearance for the PTO. It goes underneath this cross member. It doesn't touch. It's still a little warm, but it doesn't touch on either side. And then I heated it here as well. So I heated it here and down here just a little bit, as you can see. And then I pulled this way and down until I got it basically in line with the frame. This one here I had to heat and straighten out because that had a bend like that in it originally. So I took that bend out and made it flat. So basically flattened it out there, and then right here gave it just a little turn so it brought everything back in line for the rear exhaust. So that was I was getting ready to cut and do some welding, and just thought I would give this a try. I got on the Cj3b page and checked out what one of the guys did there. So I think it looks pretty good. It looks pretty straight. It is. Let's see if I can get a shot of it. The skid plate is not on yet, but you can see where the skid plate would mount. The exhaust is actually just as high as the skid plate. So it could be just a pinch lower, but oops, sorry, but not by much, because you can see it there. So I think that's the way to go to do it. For sure, that's the way to make clearance around the PTO. It's still going to be pretty tight. Let's see if I can get down here. Okay, there it is, way back there. You can just kind of see it. If I come down a little bit, there you go. There's the PTO. So it does have to come through and I believe make a little jog, but we'll get that figured out when I get the shaft and the knuckles. I just wanted to make sure that the exhaust was in such a way that I would be able to do it. And I think I got it. So I'm gonna go ahead, whoops, and tighten up the exhaust manifold bolts the rest of the way. And the clamp should be in and the hangers here pretty quick. And I'll get this nice and square. It's pretty good already. So I'll just kind of finalize some of that. Get my tailpipe. I'll probably leave that loose until the whole body's on. And then I'll get that one figured out as well. So here is the winch that's going to be going back on. The tag was gone. So I'm not exactly sure which one this is. It is the Ramsey winch. I'm going to be ordering new bearings hopefully tonight. So as soon as those come back in, finish cleaning the housing. Everything else checked out, looks good. So this will be going back together soon. Once it is, then I will do a video of installing that on the Jeep. I got to order the knuckles and the shaft so that I can get between the PTO and this. So a lot of work yet to do, but thanks for watching.